In brief, what is heroin's origin and introduction to the United
Well,
States?
now there's a heck of a story. First of all, it all goes back to the poppy, the opium poppy that has a sap that has opium in it. And that was first started in Iran and that area in the Middle East. But that's where the opium problem comes from. The opiate problem comes from the poppy. So for thousands of years, people used opium for pain and all kinds of things in this. But in 1898, the Bayer Company in Germany was interested in a new kind of pain medicine and what could they do. And so they jiggered with the opium, the morphine molecule, and they put on an extra acetyl group, a C and three H's, onto the morphine molecule. And this created a new product, and they called it heroin. Now, at the same time, they had another product that came from a plant, and that was aspirin. So they had two products. One was heroin and one was aspirin in 1898 in the Bayer Company. And they decided which was going to be the bigger one they put on the market. They thought it was going to be heroin. So they put on heroin on the market 1 year, and the next year was aspirin. Now, what was heroin used for when the Bayer Company did that? You know, it was for cough. It's a cough suppressant. And so they sold heroin, if you can imagine this, as a cough suppressant over the counter. No prescription needed for heroin. That's how it started. You can guess what happened next. We had a tremendous explosion of heroin problems, and it became a huge issue, leading in the United States to the Harrison Narcotics Act.
The Harrison Narcotics Act set out to control the source of narcotics in the United States. Although the Harrison Narcotics Act increased red tape, a person could get raw opiates and other drugs if he had the correct forms. Consequently, our friend who, before 1914, was able to buy his narcotics in the drugstore, now had to purchase them at the back of the pusher's store, illegally. Because of the limited success of the Harrison Narcotic Act, the Narcotic Drug Import and Export Act was passed. This act limited the import of opiates into the United States to medical and scientific uses only. It also prohibited any import of morphine or heroin. The aim of the Narcotic Drug Import and Export Act was to limit the use of narcotics for legal purposes. This act covered a gap which the Harrison Narcotic Act had left.
Heroin is the kind of model for opiate addiction. And when I was at NTA in DC, that was the concern, was heroin addiction. And where did the heroin come from in DC? Well, it didn't come from, the neighboring states. It came from poppy fields in Turkey. That's where it was. And they had these fields of poppies there to make opium as a medicinal thing. But a lot of it was diverted into illegal activities. And there it was made into heroin in Marseille, France. So I know it sounds odd, but it's Turkey and France. And it would come to New York, and then it would come down to DC, and that's how we got heroin here.
All the little holes that are poked in there, that's heroin. Just falling loose. Is that key on stamina? It says on stamina now.
And what was very interesting, when Nixon really picked up on the heroin problem, one of the things he wanted to do was to shut down that supply, and he talked Turkey into no longer raising poppies. This actually happened. And he got Marseille, which is where it was made into heroin, and got the French to shut it down too. And of course that had a positive effect on DC and everywhere. But What wasn't calculated was it's pretty easy to grow poppies elsewhere, and it's pretty easy to make it into heroin elsewhere. And so they diversified the supply, and it came back again.
I started to use it. I started to sniff it just to be part of the group. I started to use it while I was in school. And one day I woke up and I was addicted. You know, I woke up and I was very sick, and I didn't know what was bringing it about. But I did find out that as soon as I took some heroin through my nose, I got well. I felt normal.